Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. Today we are here to discuss the intervention of technology, the big tech and AI in our daily lives, and the disruptions it can bring to democracies around the world. Joining from Washington, D.C., we have with us Mr. Ashish Jaiman. Mr. Jaiman is the Director of Product Management at Microsoft and leads product strategy and content growth strategy for users, creators, and influencers in the passion economy. He has led teams to launch AI and cybersecurity solutions to improve security resilience and combat disinformation to help high profile, high risk entities defend against nation state attacks and info warfare. Welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I'll dive into the questions. So, big tech, disinformation, misinformation, all are being projected as big threat for democracies and societies around the world. Recent debates, literature, and expert opinions are projecting that all these are the darker side of tech, posing threats of disruption to democratic processes all around the world. Do you see the threat in a similar way, and how serious do you think this threat is?
Yeah, so let me actually take a step back and remove big tech from what you just asked, right? So, what you were asking is how is big tech, but misinformation, disinformation, gossiping, salacious news about politicians and politics has always been around since democracy, right? The idea was the scale. Rumors would spread, but they were very contained in a local way because people can only speak loud, and the voice can go so far, right? What had happened is once technology got involved, right, and not just big tech, right? Let's actually even take a step back, right? When we had technologies like radio and television, and one they were controlled by state media initially. State controlled those medias. They would use them to spread propaganda, right? And that was again disinformation, misinformation about people who were not in the government, right? Then these media became independent, and then the powerful people who own the media could actually use them to spread propaganda. Come around, internet came in late 90s, early 2000s. People were now using this new form of media to spread disinformation, misinformation. 2006, 2007, social media comes along. Access to information comes along as well by access to phones, right, across the globe, especially in democratic countries. India is an example where all of a sudden, everyone had access to phones, through the phones to the internet, through the internet to social media. The scale of propaganda, actually, the vehicle to spread and the space and speed increased exponentially, right? So now we can actually say, all right, so the misinformation, disinformation is a phenomena always been there since humanity. In democracies, since democracies, were there and are there, and now the speed and scale using big technologies or social media to not only spread but also to create at scale, create personalized disinformation, misinformation at scale, and disseminating it through social media very targeted way is what big tech has enabled, right? So that's where I'd go, is like big tech is enabling the malaise that we always had as society about disinformation, misinformation, gossiping, salacious news. That's, as humans, we get excited by those anyways.
So you just mentioned, personalized misinformation and disinformation, and you have worked and you write upon deepfakes and other, such emerging technologies, which again impact social and democratic processes. Do you think that the onus for deep fakes and the epidemic of misinformation it can lead to, the onus lies somewhere on the tech companies that support such innovations, or what is your opinion about it?
Yeah. So I have a very strong opinion, right, on this. And the reason I have a strong opinion is because every innovation, right, be it I don't know when the wheels actually were invented, what was the misinformation, disinformation during those times. But in what I have seen and read and learned about is every technology innovation always has people who are skeptic about it and would blame the technology innovation of what is happening, what is bad happening in the society, right? Then there are people who actually look at this innovation, and 90% of the time these are nefarious actors who will actually use this the technology innovation for spreading harmful things. And I can, like, we can go about any technology. Atomic bomb or a nuclear energy is one of those examples, right? It was used for creating a bomb, but it actually can create energy and is creating energy with minimal cost, as long as obviously there is some harm that can happen only if things go out of hand. But in a controlled environment, nuclear energy is actually one of the most sustainable form of energy. Same thing goes with any technology, right? Internet, when it started, most of the time actually internet and file sharing and all that was used to actually spread pornographic material, right? Bad actors using a technology. But now see where we have come, where internet is not known for by only by bad actors in dark web, but everyone, you and I are actually talking using that internet technology, very seamlessly, in video, having a conversation that maybe we were in the same room, right? If we could change the backgrounds, we can give that simulation that we were in the same room. Similarly, the technology that you're talking about, which is deepfakes or synthetic media, is in the same phase right now. So since the innovation, manipulating images, creating synthetic media has been around since, even, I don't know if you know this, but, some of the old pictures, artists actually would put faces of uh, Stalin and others, manipulate the images to spread propaganda. So it's not the tech, right? Now, what had happened from 2016 onwards is AI, artificial intelligence, has provided a capability that you can actually generate these deep fakes or synthetic voice, synthetic faces, morph voice, even morph movements, facial movements to physical movements at scale very, very quickly. So now I go back to saying, what's the responsibility of a technology? Technology companies' responsibility is innovation, right? Yes, there are some innovations that they need to control, and then how they control is different. It's very much subjective, but personally, I think that there are four things that we need to actually bring together from a mitigation perspective, right? Any new innovation needs, one, an understanding by the regulators to provide right kind of regulation around that technology, right? We want meaningful regulations, meaning that regulators need to understand the implications of technology, the intricacies, the behind the scenes work before they start calling it bad or good, right? And then create the right meaningful regulations for it. The second responsibility of the tech company itself is to have the right policies around how their technology innovations can be used, right? And I can give you some examples. I work for Microsoft, and we have this program since what, almost a decade now, 8 years or so, about our responsible AI principles, right? Which is very specific on that. Hey, whenever we publish any AI technology, has to be transparent. We have to be accountable. It has to be reliable. It has to be non-harmful in a safe environment. So all that puts the onus on us to have the right policy on how we develop the technology, how the technology is used, and how we give access to that technology, right? So that's then the third thing I'll also bring in is technology technology companies' responsibility is also to put right kind of guardrails, not just from a policy perspective, but technical guardrails around that piece of technology as well, right? Meaning that, hey, if I were to produce a technology that can generate harmful images, then which any user can actually use, I'm a platform company, then I should also participate in creating some kind of ecosystem or technology that can detect or prevent that harmful content that being created, right? I, as a technology company, is creating tools to create synthetic media. I need to anticipate what the potential risks could be and then provide technology that can help mitigate that potential risk. And the last, but the most important thing is the societal responsibility of consumers, where they understand what this technology is. They understand how to use it, especially around synthetic media deepfakes. We see a lot of people not being aware. So media literacy, a multimodal approach of media literacy, technology, uh, policies, and regulations all together will help mitigate the potential harms of any new technology, right? Be it synthetic media deepfakes today, be it nuclear technology many years back, even cars, right? As an innovation, we have regulations on, having number of uh, airbags in the car. We have regulations now in India where even the seat belts are mandatory for passengers, right, who are sitting in the back of the car, right? So that's what happens. A car company would bring in these technologies. They'll have policies. Regulators would have policies, but in this scenario of car, even the consumers have to understand that it's good for them to put the seat belts on, right? You just can't say, okay, everyone does the thing, and consumers say, who cares, right? As long as I'm not caught, I won't wear the seat belt. And that defeats the whole purpose. The policy, regulation, technology, innovation just fail, right? So the same thing with deepfake synthetic media.
True. And you said that, like we can blame technology for a lot of wrong that is happening in the society, but the onus falls on all of us. It is for all to share. Similarly, with AI, do you think that it's a dangerous technology, or if it's not dangerous, do you think, innovations are happening in a regulated environment, or as some, people warn us, has it
Yeah.
already got out of control?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about artificial intelligence is, if you go to the fundamentals of what it is, right? You're providing an ability for a machine to create correlations, more or less, right? At the end of this is what it is, right? You're saying, hey, if and the models, AI models, which we call them models, essentially, they get trained, right? Uh, think about this as like I'll give you an example, right? A young kid, a child is born. If you just give that child Indian food, right, right, and then always teach him, how to make Indian foods and whatnot. So that's like the training to that child. They would eventually only learn about creating Indian food and have a palate for Indian food as well, right? So think about child being the model. The thing that you feed is the training data set, and the outcome is what the child will do once they grow up, right? Similarly, with any AI technology, the model, there are a few things, right? One is the training data that the model gets, need to be in a way that it's diverse, it's non-harmful, does not have bias, right? And the example is like if you feed a loan application model saying that that all the data that I'm feeding you is people who are actually making $10,000 or more, right? The output is anyone who actually wants loan who is earning less than 10,000 would get rejected because the model does not even know, right? They only approve anyone, right? But if you actually provide additional criteria with diverse data sets that, hey, there are people who may not have $10,000 but have an ability to pay back because they have a sustainable job, They have other partner who may be actually working and then repay the loan and whatever. Then there could be policies, right? Then the model would output the right thing. So in this scenario, when you say AI is creating harm, all it is doing is creating correlations. If you feed bad data, it would output bad data. If you feed good data, diverse data, interesting good data, it would feed out good data. Now, so that's the basic premise. Now let's get back to getting out of control. One of the challenges with AI is, you know, understanding of how the model learns is still gray box, right? I won't say it is a black box, but it's very hard to actually figure out how the model has created those correlations, right? Again, it depends on the kind of the volume of the training data, the kind of training data and whatnot. So that's the gray box, which there are efforts in the industry with policymakers to actually make that gray a lot, good box essentially. I don't want to call it white and black boxes because those are not the right terms. But those are not inclusive terms. But the idea is like, hey, can we make it more understandable, right? So that's an effort going on. But right now, where we are is AI is kind of non-extent. The model how it creates correlations is very hard to understand. It very well depends on the training data sets and the outcome. So going back to your main question, which was like, is getting out of hand? I don't think it is getting out of hand. You just bring it back to what we talked about previously is like, hey, any new innovation initially would feel like it is getting out of hand. If it gets into bad hands, and it would create all kinds of problems, harms, and whatnot. But we all have collective responsibilities, from the technology companies that are creating the solution, the policymakers who are trying to create right kind of policy, and the citizens who actually have to be aware of what this is, how it works. Now, I won't call the citizens as the primary people who should have the responsibility per se, but awareness, the media literacy or the literacy around AI has to come from the tech companies and whatnot, but should be easily understandable by consumers. And consumers sometimes do have to make an effort to understand it rather than just going with the grapevine.
I want to talk about one latest innovation in AI, that is Chat GPT. And we are hearing, I mean, it's in the news every day now. Teachers are writing about it, policymakers are writing about it. What specific implications do you think it can have for like younger population, or generation, or
Yeah.
developing mental faculties of students, of people who are who can rely on this technology to do a lot of things for them? Do you
Yeah.
think it will affect the overall development of children?
Yeah, I personally am a strong believer that any new innovation actually would improve overall society in the medium to long term, right? In short term, again, we get into this whole discussion around, hey, harms versus ban it and policy and whatnot. But I'll tell you about Chat GPT, right? The Chat GPT is generative text, right? The model, GPT 3.5, which is OpenAI's latest model, uh, is uh, is fed a lot of text, and now it can generate text, right? That's the whole idea, right? You can, and it's in the assistant mode essentially. You can ask questions and it will respond to you with answers and whatnot, and it can build upon. It would know the context, which is again the framework of technology, that is right. So rather than diving deep into the intricacies of how it is built, simplified way, it actually generates text, right? And you can chat with it, meaning it would remember what your previous talking point were and then generate text accordingly, right? Now, there are a ton of good use cases, and I'll give you another example here, right? Remember when we were to actually write with pen and paper? Nobody does it anymore, right? Especially people like us who actually have access to that technology of PCs and Word and other editor tools. When we would write with pen and paper, nobody would like. There's no tool to check our spellings. We'll have to learn our spellings. So essentially, our focus was more about learning the right grammar, learning the right spelling versus the thought behind that writing, right? Now comes editor tools like Microsoft Word. We can actually write, and as we write, it sometimes actually changes your spelling, right? It fixes your spelling. So now you actually can focus more on the thought, clarity of the thought versus how you write. Like, I'm not saying that is not an important skill. All I'm trying to say is, like, there are little things that the editor actually improves, right? Then you go to another set of tools which are AI based. Grammarly is one example, where it actually even suggests you the readability store. It would change the whole sentences for you if you want. Word also has that feature. Go to the next level, right? Now we're talking about Chat GPT, which can generate a lot of text. So you give it a prompt, right? A thing saying, hey, write me a poem about, Holi. Holi is coming, right? And it would write it for you. Now, what Chat GPT is doing is generating content. I think there's so many good use cases. As technology evolves, right? As innovations happen, there will a lot of use cases. And I'll give you some examples, right? Especially in the marketing and copywriting space, right? Marketers can focus on so many other things, right? And at least can have augmentation of their skills using Chat GPT, right? Uh, Writers can also learn and explore different thoughts using Chat GPT, right? I'm talking about writers, right? Uh, in in other scenarios where researchers would have to do a lot of reading and synthesize that content, Chat GPT can do that as well, right? So there's so many good use cases. The idea is not to replace that person or that person's job. The idea is to how we can improve that person's job so that they can focus on the things which are really important, right? Thinking about something, you know, bringing other ideas together and asking ChatGPT a good answer for those, right? I'm not saying accurate answers, a good answer, then they can have to comprehend themselves and eventually learn from it and produce something meaningful. So it is like, from pen and paper to now ChatGPT, every time it has evolved, it has given people a bit more agency, right? A bit more, uh, uh, more agency, essentially, more capability, augment their skills, and we are in the same space as ChatGPT right now.
uh, to move away from technological innovations to talk about the implication of technology on in our day-to-day life. So we have so many sources of information now, whether it's misinformation, disinformation, or factual information worldwide. And there have been mushrooming of many digital media outlets. And yet we see that each there exists great ideological divide amongst people today, greater than ever, and each group seems to live in its own echo chamber. How has it come to be? Isn't it counterintuitive that the more information you have, uh, the more open-minded you'll become? How have we reached here?
So this again, this is human phenomena, right? We want to have a very simplistic view of life, right? We don't want to put effort into anything, right? I don't know who wrote this think fast, think slow book, right? I forget the author's name, but the basic idea is the same, right? There is a set of signals that we have developed uh, through evolution, where it was always fight and flight mode, right? To quickly simplify things or run or save ourselves, right? And the more information you have to think more about that comprehension of that information. Now, as humans, as our lizard brains, right, there's a part of our brain which is still living the fight and flight mode of when we were just evolving as humans, right, or our cognitive ability were developing. uh, that piece of brain tries to simplify and just make a very calculated assumption very quickly, thinking fast on the harm or the benefit from that particular information, right? It takes longer, it takes more brain power to understand the scenario, the thought, the writing, the information, and whatnot. And we as humans, we always want to conserve energy, and this is not humans like we are conserving energy. It's like the way we are built. It's all about conservation of energy internally. Even brain needs to conserve energy, right? So that is the basic biological fact. Now we go in chemistry fact, right? Now we're going to, hey, more access to information does not mean that everyone would actually put extra effort to understand and comprehend that information, right? In fact, more access to information, more information coming from all point of views actually makes us even look more inwardly and bring our biases out in front, right? We don't take effort into learning what the other's point of view is. So our biases are shaped by, our upbringing, our, life experiences from childhood to now. So all those biases actually come in forefront because of there's so much to out there. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what is accurate, what is not. So I go back and just bring in my biases out there, and then also align myself and my biases with what I see actually works for me, right? And that's why I don't think it's actually conflicting. It actually makes sense when you have so much information come at you, you end up actually just picking up the information which is more relevant and which brings and perpetuating your biases.
To talk further about the implication of the emerging technologies in our lives and in the labor market and legal framework, what possible consequences do you think emerging technologies can have for democracies around the world?
So one thing around democracies is, like, because the scale and speed of information that flows through, uh, it's very easy to actually spread disinformation. That's one. We talked about how we can, even technology can enable to create a very personalized message at scale that actually can bring up your biases. you know uh, there's a research by Twitter that a false or a a bad tweet actually gets 7 times more engagement than a good or a positive or a factual tweet, right? So again, it just plays into our biases. So the technology, the way we have to think about is, and this is less about technology, because bad actors would do bad. That's what they would do. The what I would want to call out is policies around, especially in a democratic country, policies uh, for disseminating information about elections, election policies, political campaigns, political leaders somehow have to have the right kind of regulation around it. I don't want to actually even go to a level, because free speech is super important, right? Everyone should be able to speak their mind and act in the way they want to, right? And they should have the right to choose a leader that leads them, and they should also align their own motivations with what the leader's policies are, right? Because that's what democracy is. But spreading false news, disinformation, having a quick recourse to fix that, from a policy and regulation perspective, is super important, that everyone has to think through, especially the policymakers.
Uh, about labor market, why do we see an increasing number of tech companies laying thousands of employees off? I mean, it could have its own disruptions in not just democratic, but societies all around.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is actually, if you think about what is happening in the labor market, the unemployment is historically low, especially in the US, right? Even after, these high-paying jobs are less now, especially in the tech. What had happened is they over-indexed, the companies over-indexed during last couple of years, because the pace of innovation, the technology was coming, there was the money was cheap as well, the interest rates were very low, so you can raise a ton of debt and then use the debt to for investment and innovation. Once that phenomena is over now, the inflation is high, the interest is rising up, you have to maintain cost, and then you also, businesses do all the time, right? They realign their priorities. They also look outward and see, what they would do in next 3 to 5 years, and based on that, they will actually do a recalibration of the head count they have, right? But there are other industries other than tech which actually have labor shortage, right? So what you're talking about is that, yes, there's a lot of news around tech layoffs and whatnot, and that's because, for maybe right or wrong reasons, I don't want to participate in that. But that overall, if you look just from an overall labor market unemployment numbers, they are still historically low, right? The tech layoffs is just recalibrating their business needs, looking forward to the market. The money is expensive now with the interest rate high. So businesses would do what they have to do to make sure that they keep the pace of innovation within the resources they have. And sometimes, they can actually, change their business motive, aspirations as well, which some of the companies are doing. So I don't think that personally, I don't think that the layoff actually has an overall societal impact on the unemployment rate. But yes, it does make very interesting news, and gather and captures people's imagination, because these are high paying jobs that are going away.
To end on a positive note, how do you think that the younger generation can better utilize the digital technology and safeguard the democratic space?
So again, the power is on young, right? Because they have access to all kinds of information. They have access to all the tools to consume that information. One of the things that I'll challenge everyone, mostly young folks, is to be skeptic about the news that they hear or see, or the information they get, and challenge that to see if it is either playing with their own biases, or there could be some other facts out there, right? There's one great saying that if it smells like fish, it is fish, right? So again, if it feels like, hey, this is not common sense, right? Then let's actually go back and figure out, look for alternative information sources. Young generation can do that. They have better cognitive abilities, they have better information access, they're smarter. And if they fail in comprehending the situation and not understanding, making a difference between fact and fallacy, then we, as democracies, we are in a very bad time going forward, right? Because at the end of the day, young population are the foundation of any country as they grow up, as they become the next set of leaders, right? And if they get into this not even being aware of what is fact and what is policy, then it would be challenging times for any democracy.
So thank you so much for being with us today, giving us your valuable time. Thank you so much.